Their pranks made me dread my birthday, so I turned their celebrations into catastrophes. I'm Samantha, 29 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my birthday has always felt like a punishment. In a family where celebrations are everything, lavish cakes, themed decorations, professional photo shoots, rented venues, you'd expect every kid to have their moment. And for most of my extended family that was true. My cousins Brittany, 31, Vanessa, 33, and Logan, 35, had birthdays that looked like Pinterest exploded in their honor. But me? Every year felt like some kind of long-running joke that only I wasn't in on. When I was a kid, it started with funny little pranks, as my parents and aunts would call them. Like, the candles on my cake would be joke candles that never blew out, but not just one or two, all of them. So while the adults laughed and told me to try again, I'd be red-faced and frustrated, while Brittany got a 5-tier Barbie cake the month before. One year, I remember being maybe 8 or 9, I was so excited for my gift because my mom kept saying, "You're going to love it." I opened the box and found a toy I had begged for. But it was empty. They'd taken the toy out and filled the box with rock. Literally. Everyone laughed while I sat there trying not to cry, pretending it was funny because otherwise I'd look like a brat. Another time, my gift was a bunch of individually wrapped canned dog food. My dad thought it was hilarious. "Samantha always wanted a puppy," he joked while I sat there horrified. And the worst part? My cousins started joining in as we got older. By the time I hit my teens, it wasn't even disguised as jokes anymore. One year, my family told me they were throwing me a big Sweet 16. They hyped it up for months, talked about the guest list, decorations, the whole deal. I showed up in a new dress my aunt bought for me, and the only people there were my family. No friends. No guests. They never invited anyone. I stood in the living room while they yelled surprise, like it was funny. My mom handed me a balloon and said, "It's more intimate this way, sweetie." When I turned 17, they hired a singer to come to our family dinner. I thought it would be cool, something romantic or impressive. Nope. It was a guy in a ridiculous Elvis costume who sang a parody version of Happy Birthday, while fake grinding on my chair in front of the whole family. They filmed it. Logan posted it to his Facebook with the caption, "Sam's big date for the year." No one ever defended me. When I complained, my parents would just roll their eyes and say things like, "You've got to learn to laugh at yourself." Or my dad's favorite line, "You'll have great stories to tell one day." Like it was some character-building lesson instead of just cruelty disguised as comedy. It wasn't just the birthday stuff either. It was the constant reminder that I wasn't like the rest of them. Logan was the golden child, straight A's, scholarship athlete, always the loudest at family functions. Vanessa was the beauty queen, homecoming royalty, always surrounded by friends. Brittany had the brain, science awards, early college admission. And me? I was the background character in every family photo, the one who got left out of group chats, the one they never remembered to mention when talking about all the kids. Even as adults, nothing changed. Last year, I turned 29. My cousins planned a birthday weekend for Brittany in Napa. Vanessa got a beach house getaway. Logan had a surprise dinner party with a private chef. And me? I got a group text the day after my birthday, "Sorry we forgot. Hope it was fun." That was it. Not even a card. Not even a joke. It's gotten to the point where I dread my birthday. I take the day off work, not to celebrate but to hide. I don't tell coworkers. I don't post about it. I just try to get through it without any more jokes. But the worst part? I think I started to believe it was normal. That it was fine. That maybe I was too sensitive. That maybe I didn't deserve better. It's taken me a long time to realize this wasn't some quirky family dynamic. It was humiliation. It was targeted. And it was never okay. My 29th birthday was supposed to be the year I finally gave up caring. That was the plan. I didn't expect anything. I didn't remind anyone. I told myself I'd get through the day quietly, maybe buy myself a bottle of wine and watch a movie alone. But, of course, my family had other ideas. That night, I was invited to a nice dinner at my Aunt Tricia's house. Just low-key family time, they said. I told myself not to go. I even stood in my driveway with my keys in hand for a full 5 minutes thinking about driving off somewhere else. But I went. And I regretted it the second I walked through the door. There was a cake on the table, but instead of my name it said Happy 21st Logan, with "Just kidding Sam," scribbled in red icing underneath like an afterthought. Everyone laughed when I saw it. Brittany handed me a gag gift bag that contained a pair of granny panties and a bottle of wrinkle cream. Vanessa, who's barely spoken to me in the past year, toasted with, "To Sam, proof that some people really do peak in middle school." Even my dad, who normally stays out of these things, made a crack about me being a great role model in case the kids want to learn how to be invisible. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just smiled and excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at my reflection for 10 minutes while everyone else ate cake and took selfies. That was the moment. That exact moment, staring into that bathroom mirror with cheap lighting and my cheeks burning with humiliation. That's when something snapped. When I left that night, I didn't say goodbye. I didn't even look anyone in the eye. I just drove straight to Mason's apartment and walked in without knocking. My brother is 5 years younger than me, and even though he's always sort of flown under the radar in the family, he sees things. He always has. When I walked in, he took one look at me and didn't say a word. Just handed me a beer and sat down next to me. We didn't come up with the plan that night, but the seed was planted. Over the next few weeks, between work and pretending everything was normal, we started planning. The goal wasn't just to embarrass them. That would have been too easy. We wanted it to feel like everything just went wrong. Like the universe had finally turned the tables. Because if it looked like revenge, they'd play the victims again. But if it looked like fate, well, then maybe they'd finally get a taste of what they've been dishing out for decades. The opportunity came sooner than we expected. Vanessa was turning 34 in late May, and as usual, there was going to be a massive party. Rented venue, catered food, custom cocktails with her name printed on the napkins. It was the same weekend Mason was flying in from Austin for a friend's wedding, so the timing couldn't have been better. We started with the little things. Mason volunteered to help with setting up the party, claiming he was finally trying to be more involved. They bought it instantly. I offered to design the slideshow for Vanessa's birthday montage, saying I wanted to make amends. That was a lie, obviously. We coordinated every step. The plan had to be precise, layered in just enough plausible deniability that no one could point fingers. It had to feel like bad luck, like a bunch of things going wrong all at once. Like karma. We couldn't afford to fail. Not after everything they'd done to me. And we were just getting started. Let's talk about Brittany. She'd always been the most image-obsessed of all my cousins. Everything had to be curated, filtered, and posted with the perfect caption. So it was no surprise when she announced her upcoming birthday party would be ultra-exclusive and invite-only, hosted on a high-rise rooftop in Los Angeles with a budget that would make a wedding planner blush. The total spend? Just over $25,000. And that didn't even include the post-party brunch scheduled for the next morning. It was supposed to be perfect. She had a live jazz trio, a signature cocktail named after her Instagram handle, and a professional photographer she'd hired for $3,000 to capture every glamorous moment in golden hour lighting. The guest list was tight, carefully vetted, and strictly controlled. Which, of course, made it the perfect opportunity for the next step in Mason's and my plan. I started dropping hints in the family group chats. Yes, the same ones I had been excluded from for years, until recently when Mason sneakily added me back in. Nothing too obvious at first. Just things like, so excited that Brittany's opening it up this year, or, glad everyone finally gets a chance to celebrate together. I added a fake screenshot of a text that made it look like Brittany had personally told me to spread the word. Mason backed it up with a message to one of our aunts saying, "Yeah, Brittany said it's cool, just come dressed up and bring something fun." And, as expected, the whispers spread like wildfire. Some of our more distant relatives, folks from Riverside, Glendale, even Bakersfield, started making plans. A few thought it was a costume party, since they'd seen Brittany's Instagram post with her wearing a feathered dress and holding a masquerade mask. So they leaned into it. On the evening of the party, 3 of our second cousins showed up in full 1920s themed outfits, and one family brought gifts wrapped in floral paper with a big sign that said, "Happy Birthday Brit Brit." At first, the rooftop staff didn't question it. The guests arrived early, they were dressed nicely, and Brittany had hired extra help for the check-in table who didn't know any better. But as more people trickled in, cousins, in-laws, old family friends with toddlers in tow, it started to become obvious that something was wrong. Brittany was taking photos with her inner circle when she heard the first kid scream. She turned and saw Aunt Cheryl marching toward the bar, flanked by her twin boys and holding a cake box from Ralph. She was wearing a bright pink floral dress that clashed painfully with the minimalist white and gold aesthetic Brittany had paid a decorator thousands to create. And then, in the middle of the crowd, Aunt Cheryl yelled over the jazz music, "So how come our kids never get invited to these things? You think you're better than the rest of us?" Conversations stopped. The band faltered. Brittany tried to pull Cheryl aside, but not before half the room had heard the question. Some guests started whispering. Others pulled out their phones. The photographer, who was already annoyed after being asked to wait because of unexpected guests, looked at the crowd, shook his head, and muttered, "This is not what I was paid for." He packed up his camera and left without another word. Brittany stood there speechless as the only person she'd hired to capture her perfect night disappeared into the elevator. Then came the wine. One of the younger cousins, maybe 7 or 8, was holding a plastic cup full of red wine someone had carelessly handed him. No one's sure exactly how it happened. Some said he tripped, others said he got bumped, but either way, that drink went flying and splashed across the front of Brittany's custom designer gown. Bright red across soft beige silk. Her face froze, then crumpled, then twisted in the most dramatic, gut-wrenching expression of rage I'd ever seen. She didn't say a word. She just screamed, turned on her heel, and ran through the crowd, slamming the heavy rooftop door behind her so hard the jazz trio stopped playing again. Mason had been live-streaming the whole time on his Instagram. At first, it was just supposed to be a casual look at this bougie party kind of stream, but as the chaos unfolded, the viewer count skyrocketed. Over 400 people were watching by the time Brittany disappeared, and Cheryl started yelling at one of the bartenders for ignoring her drink order. The comments were brutal. It was exactly the kind of disaster we'd planned, loud, chaotic, and just believable enough to look like a series of unfortunate coincidences. No one could prove a thing. And if anyone asked, we'd just shrug and say, "Wow, that got out of hand fast." After Brittany's rooftop meltdown, I expected Vanessa to lay low. But no, if anything, she doubled down. Her party was already in motion, a pastel-themed garden event in the backyard of my aunt's newly landscaped home. Think curated floral installations, lavender lemonade stands, seating charts with vintage calligraphy, and a strict dress code with soft neutrals only. She spent over $9,000 on catering alone, flew in a floral designer from San Diego, and scheduled a professional photo shoot to document everything from guest arrivals to cake cutting. So Mason and I adjusted the plan accordingly. It started with a simple conversation over coffee with my dad. He still trusted me in a way the others didn't, so I played into that. I told him I was worried about the weather, said I'd checked the forecast, and there was a chance of light showers, just enough to turn the whole backyard into a mess. "You know how soggy it gets," I said casually. That was all it took. The next morning, he turned on the sprinkler system and let it run for nearly 2 hours, just to soften up the lawn ahead of the rain. And right on schedule, that evening, the skies opened up. Not heavy rain, just a consistent, drizzling mist that soaked the freshly watered ground and turned Vanessa's carefully curated garden into a soft, slippery nightmare. Guests started arriving in stilettos and loafers, stepping into what looked like a whimsical dream but quickly turned into a marsh. Expensive heels sank into the mud. At least 2 people slipped. I saw a woman in a cream silk jumpsuit go down hard next to the gift table. The main attraction, the food, never even showed up. 24 hours before the party, I called the caterer Vanessa had booked. I used a fake voice and introduced myself as Rebecca, assistant to Vanessa M. I said there had been a scheduling mix-up, that the event was being rescheduled, and that we'd follow up next week to confirm a new date. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. She removed Vanessa from the day's schedule, and I never followed up. By the time guests realized there was no food coming, Mason was already at work on the music. He'd offered to handle the playlist for the event to help Vanessa chill a little, and she, surprisingly, agreed. What she didn't know was that he'd created 2 versions of the playlist. The public one had soft indie pop and acoustic tracks, but the real one, the one queued up on the Bluetooth system that morning, was something else entirely. It started subtle. A few piano nursery rhymes mixed into the background. Then came The Wheels on the Bus, followed by If You're Happy and You Know It, and finally Elmo's World on repeat. For 15 solid minutes, guests looked around in confusion, unsure if it was a joke or just poor taste. Vanessa was inside changing outfits for the photo shoot and didn't realize what was happening until her friend Amy came in and asked if the music had been chosen by a toddler. Vanessa came outside to find half her guests leaving, shaking mud off their shoes and laughing awkwardly. One guy near the bar asked aloud if the whole party was a parody. The photographer never got the planned golden hour shots because by then, the guests had scattered. No one wanted to pose in mud, especially after one woman got her heels stuck and had to be helped out by her date. Vanessa tried to pull it together, even started giving an impromptu thank you speech, but no one was listening. The moment was gone. She disappeared 20 minutes later. Someone found her locked in the upstairs bathroom, refusing to come out. Her mother kept knocking and whispering through the door that everything was fine, that it was just bad luck, but Vanessa wouldn't respond. Her whole brand, perfectionist, aesthetic queen, flawless host, collapsed in a single evening. And the best part? None of it could be traced back to us. No one suspected a thing. So let's talk about Logan. Out of all my cousins, Logan was the loudest, the cockiest, and the one who'd been coasting on charm and luck his whole life. He bragged constantly about his prestigious role at some well-known consulting firm, always name-dropping executives, talking about strategy meetings, and pretending he was irreplaceable. What most people didn't know, what even his parents didn't know, was that Logan's entire position was built on a lie. He'd faked parts of his resume. I knew it because I'd seen the original version years ago, and then the upgraded version he submitted later, the one that claimed he had advanced certifications he never earned and job titles he never held. It had always bothered me, but I'd kept quiet. Until now. Logan was planning this massive bar crawl for his birthday. A full day of drinking, 20-plus people, including coworkers, old college buddies, extended family, even his boss, who was supposed to meet up with them midway through the crawl. Logan was talking about it for weeks like it was the social event of the season. That's when I made my move. 3 days before the bar crawl, I gathered everything I had. Screenshots, old LinkedIn profiles, saved copies of job descriptions, and a list of inconsistencies that proved without a doubt that Logan had fabricated key parts of his employment history. I printed it all and wrote a short, anonymous note addressed directly to his boss. "You deserve to know who you've really hired." Then I mailed it overnight to the company's main office. The letter was signed with no name, no trace, no way to connect it back to me. It landed in his boss's hands around noon, about 4 hours before the bar crawl was set to begin. At the first bar, Logan was his usual self, laughing loudly, holding court with his friends, acting like he owned the entire street. He was passing out branded wristbands with his initials on them and doing shots with a few of the younger interns. Everything seemed perfect. Then he checked his phone. He froze for just a second, just long enough that Mason and I noticed from across the room. His fingers moved fast. His smile faltered. Then he turned and saw his boss walk in, flanked by 2 men in suit. The 3 of them exchanged brief hellos, then Logan was pulled aside. They stepped out onto the patio where no one else could hear. When he came back inside, the color had drained from his face. He didn't say anything, just grabbed his coat, mumbled something to a friend about a work emergency, and left. The crowd was confused at first, but then the whispers started. Someone pulled out their phone and showed a forwarded email. Another person gasped. A third laughed and said, "Wait, he lied about all that?" One of the interns scrolled through her inbox, her jaw dropping. Screenshots started flying around. Some people were in shock. Others were straight up amused. By the end of the crawl, Logan was a no-show. By the end of the night, his so-called dream job was in jeopardy. The company didn't act immediately, but the damage was done. The emails had spread. The questions had started. And by the end of the week, Logan was fired. His name had already been flagged in internal network. Word got out fast. The consulting world is small, especially at his level. No one wanted to hire someone with a reputation for dishonesty. The industry gossip was brutal. Everything he'd built, every arrogant story he'd told, every smug comment he'd made about being better than the rest of us, it all collapsed in less than a week. He didn't know who exposed him. He probably never will. And that was the point. So, what happened after? That's the part no one ever talks about after revenge, the aftermath. The smoke doesn't just clear. It lingers. All 3 of them, Brittany, Vanessa, and Logan, suspected me. Of course they did. They weren't stupid. They started connecting dots, especially once the coincidences stacked too perfectly. But they didn't have a single shred of real evidence. Nothing they could take to our parents, nothing they could show the rest of the family. Just suspicion. And the family chat rooms? They exploded. Cousins started arguing, aunts picked sides, and every thread turned into a firestorm. Some said it was karma, others blamed Brittany, Vanessa, and Logan for years of cruelty. The family was split down the middle. But what they didn't expect was Mason. He went in, full force. He dropped a message that hit like a bomb. Where were you when they were ruining her birthdays for years? Where was all this concern when Samantha was being humiliated every single time? You all laughed. You all watched. And now suddenly you care? No one responded for a full 5 minutes. Then a trickle of support started coming in. A cousin from Colorado messaged me privately to say, "I wish I had spoken up when we were kids." Another said, "I always thought it was cruel, but I didn't want to be the one to ruin the party." Slowly, the tone shifted. Some people started defending me publicly. Others just went silent. Brittany, desperate to salvage what was left of her image, tried to rebrand herself on social media. She posted a dramatic black and white photo of herself crying, captioned with a long paragraph about growing up surrounded by pain and learning to heal through grace. She tried to turn it into a new personality, like she was rising from the ashes. But no one bought it. The comments were brutal. Even her usual defenders stopped liking her post. A few people unfollowed her entirely. Vanessa didn't even try to fight. She packed up and moved to Chicago within 2 weeks, deleted her main Instagram, and started a new account under a different name. But the videos had already been clipped, stitched into montages, and circulated online. One TikTok of her falling in the mud got over 70,000 views before it was taken down. The internet has no mercy, and the garden party disaster became a running joke in local circles for months. Logan had it the worst. After the emails circulated, his name was blacklisted in multiple circles. Recruiters stopped returning his messages. Friends from work distanced themselves. Even family members who used to gush about him at holidays stopped bringing him up. No one wanted to say it out loud, but his reputation was gone. He wasn't the star anymore. He was a cautionary tale. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I didn't brag. I just watched it all unfold, quietly. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't screaming or throwing a fit. Sometimes it's silence while the consequences echo louder than anything you could ever say. After everything, the trio wasn't a trio anymore. They used to move like one unit, Brittany, Vanessa, and Logan, the perfect, untouchable center of every family gathering. But not anymore. They started bickering in front of everyone, subtle at first, then not so subtle. Brittany accused Logan of embarrassing the family. Vanessa blamed Brittany for making the group look ridiculous online. Logan snapped back that at least he didn't get taken out by a 7-year-old with a juice box. At Thanksgiving, Olivia stopped liking Megan's post. At Christmas, Jake refused to back Vanessa up during an argument about the party video going viral. The fractures were visible. Everyone saw it. But the real shift happened quietly. It was at my nephew's birthday, of all places. We were sitting in the backyard, plastic chairs, paper plates, nothing fancy, and my mom sat down next to me. She didn't look at me right away, just stared out at the kids playing. Then she said it. Maybe we really should have taken your side earlier. That was all. No big apology. No breakdown. Just a single sentence, said soft and quiet, but heavy enough to knock the wind out of me. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Later that year, we had another big family holiday. Nothing fancy, just the usual crowd, but the mood was off. People were tense, navigating old lines that no longer held. At one point someone, probably Uncle Dave, half-joked, "Let's hope no one ruins someone's birthday this time." And the room just went quiet. No laughter. No follow-up. Just silence. Everyone understood exactly what that meant. The strangest part was the seating. All the younger cousins used to fight for spots near Brittany and Vanessa, hoping to be noticed, included, maybe get reposted in one of their Instagram stories. But now? They pulled their chairs next to mine. They asked me about music, college, work. One of them even brought me a slice of pie and asked if I wanted to play a board game. For the first time, I wasn't an afterthought. I was someone they looked up to. And then my birthday came. I didn't expect anything. I told people not to make a fuss. But when I walked into the house, there were balloons, a homemade cake, and a table full of faces that didn't smile with pity or smugness, just warmth. There were no jokes, no fake candles, no pranks, just people who showed up because they wanted to be there. And for once, I didn't cry.